Reaching space and spending a few days in orbit is becoming an increasingly common activity, undertaken by people from all walks of life. On February 1, 2021, less than a year after the first flight of two NASA astronauts aboard SpaceX's Dragon capsule in May 2020, billionaire Jared Isaacman announced the purchase of an orbital journey with the same capsule. This mission, fully funded by him, would take Isaacman and 3 other passengers, all civilians, into space for a noble cause: to raise funds for a pediatric hospital. The mission, called Inspiration 4, took place from September 16 to 18, 2021, lasting 2 days and 23 hours. It was the first space mission in history entirely funded by private individuals and conducted with a private vehicle, SpaceX's Dragon. After returning from space, just 5 months later, Isaacman, deeply moved by the experience, announced a new mission called Polaris Dawn, part of a private space program consisting of 3 missions. During this flight, the Dragon capsule will reach an altitude of 1,400 kilometers, the highest ever reached in Earth's orbit by a human crew. At 700 kilometers altitude, the first extravehicular activity by a civilian crew on a private vehicle will also be conducted. After spending almost 3 days in space with the Inspiration 4 mission, Jared Isaacman was profoundly impacted by the experience and realized how crucial spaceflight is for humanity's future. This awareness, also fostered by the time spent at SpaceX preparing for the first flight, led him to announce, on February 14, 2022, the Polaris program. The Polaris Dawn mission, scheduled to launch no earlier than August 26, will be the first of 3 missions that will see Isaacman and the SpaceX team explore new frontiers of spaceflight. The first 2 missions will use the Dragon capsule, while the third Polaris mission, currently planned as the first crewed flight of the Starship, will mark a new era in space exploration. Although precise dates for the second and third missions have not yet been announced, they are likely to occur by the end of the decade, perhaps even sooner. These missions are designed to develop technologies and conduct crucial research for human spaceflight, preparing for a future where Starship will be the primary means of exploration. The Polaris Dawn crew will consist of Jared Isaacman, who will serve as mission commander, and Scott Poteet, who will be the pilot of the Dragon capsule. Poteet served for about 20 years in the Air Force before working in the private sector, including at the payment company founded by Isaacman. He was also the mission director for Inspiration 4 and one of Isaacman's most trusted collaborators. The other 2 crew members will be Sarah Gillis and Anna Menon, both engineers at SpaceX, responsible for overseeing and conducting most of the experiments in orbit. For this mission, a modified Dragon capsule, Resilience, will be used, which first flew with the Crew 1 mission in 2020 and later with Inspiration 4. Currently, SpaceX has 4 Dragon capsules: Resilience, Endurance, Endeavor, and Freedom. However, given the increasing demand, SpaceX has announced that it will resume production to build at least a 5th one by 2025. The Resilience capsule has been dedicated to the Inspiration 4 and Polaris missions, with significant modifications to suit the objectives of the new mission. During the flight, which is expected to last about 5 days, the crew will reach an orbit at an altitude of 1,400 kilometers, the highest ever achieved by a crewed flight in Earth's orbit. This altitude will allow the crew to conduct scientific tests far from the protection of Earth's magnetic field, exposing themselves to a higher level of solar radiation. To reach this altitude, the Dragon capsule will initially be placed in an orbit with an apogee of 1,200 kilometers and a perigee of 190 kilometers, flying over the South Atlantic Magnetic Anomaly, an area where radiation is particularly high. One of the main objectives of the mission will be the extravehicular activity, which will be broadcast live. During this activity, 2 crew members, Isaacman and Gillis, will exit the capsule wearing spacesuits designed by SpaceX, while Poteet and Menon will remain inside. The spacesuits represent a technological innovation, with touch-sensitive gloves and visors projected internally on the helmet, allowing real-time data visualization. SpaceX has dedicated time and resources to developing these suits, thinking of a future where hundreds, if not thousands, of people will work in Earth's orbit, on the Moon, and Mars. In addition to scientific experiments, such as studying the effects of radiation and changes to the cardiovascular system in microgravity, the mission will test laser communications in space using SpaceX's Starlink satellite network. This technology is crucial for future missions to the Moon and Mars, enabling stable and reliable communications over long distances. The Polaris program represents a unique opportunity to observe how SpaceX works, with long-term goals and an iterative approach to technological development. The program was created to make the best use of the technologies already developed by SpaceX, such as space tourism, Starlink, Dragon, and spacesuits, integrating them into a single goal. The Polaris missions will not only serve to test new technologies but also offer an opportunity to raise funds for charitable causes, such as St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, continuing the tradition started with Inspiration 4. The Polaris Dawn mission promises to be one of the most ambitious and exciting ever attempted in human spaceflight, especially in the private sector. Never before has a private company flown non-professional civilians on such a daring mission. All the prerequisites for enjoying a historic feat are there. Thanks for watching this video. Leave a comment below with your opinions on this mission, and subscribe to the channel.